The narrative transports us back to the Shadow Mountain range located within the Turian kingdom. A terrifying wave of frost creatures is currently laying siege to the fortress, pushing the commander into a state of absolute panic. He shrieks for his soldiers to open fire, and a volley of thousands of arrows descends, shredding the front lines of the monstrous horde. Nevertheless, the onslaught of creatures is persistent. They keep moving forward, with some even utilizing the piled-up corpses of their fallen brothers as a macabre ladder to scale the fortress ramparts. Frantic soldiers yell for their comrades to hold the line, begging them to prevent the beasts from reaching the summit as they thrust their spears downward to halt the climb. Suddenly, one of the monster chieftains steps into the fray. He lifts a massive boulder and handles it like a baseball, swinging a mana-infused club to propel the projectile directly at the Turian defenders. The soldiers watch in total shock as the immense stone crashes into their ranks. The beast, standing at 5 times the size of its kin, readies another rock the size of a house. The drained soldiers can only watch in terror, wondering how they are meant to survive such a brutal assault. Even with the heavily armored Turian knights joining the struggle in their desperation, a soldier shouts that they require Dawn Card just as the next massive rock is about to flatten them. Kaiser appears in a sudden blur of motion. He strikes the boulder with a specific weapon he claimed from Dawn Card after slaying him, a massive, pillar-like armament. The force of the impact sends the stone flying directly back into the face of the monster leader. The troops erupt in cheers, celebrating their survival and praising the redhead as the new king of Iron Cliff. High in the air, Kaiser grapples with the weight of the enormous pillar, cursing Dawn Card and questioning how that pig of a man ever managed to wield such a ridiculously heavy object. With a roar of exertion, he hurls the weapon into the cluster of monsters, crushing them before dropping down with his blade to start a one-sided massacre. As Kaiser shreds through his foes, the scene transitions to him studying a book on the core principles of mana. He clarifies the concept of overcoming fundamental fear, noting that once you understand how to breach an enemy's defenses, the subsequent stage involves mastering the movement of all realms. We then return to the current battlefield against the forces of Count Desmond. Kaiser's eyes shimmer with intense concentration as he scrutinizes every inch of his rival, Hutton. He monitors the rotation of Hutton's shoulders, his center of gravity, and the specific placement of his feet. Kaiser explains that by detecting the signals emitted by the body and anticipating an adversary's next move, one can confront any foe. Hutton lunges at top speed, but Kaiser effortlessly deflects the frontal strike with a lightning-fast maneuver. Kaiser pivots to the left, catching Hutton off balance and slashing across his face, leaving a shallow crimson mark. Hutton is visibly rattled, realizing that Kaiser just read his physical intentions perfectly before he could even recover. Kaiser lunges for his head, but Hutton lets out a defiant scream, gathering his strength to parry the blow and retreat to a safe distance. Kaiser stands near Jillian, who remains injured on the ground. Hutton, now gasping for breath, realizes that if he hadn't ducked at the final millisecond, his life would have ended. He gazes at Kaiser, wondering who this rogue actually is, as he perceives nothing remarkable in the man's build or demeanor. When Hutton asks for his name, Kaiser simply snaps back that knowing it will do him no favors. Contemptuously, Hutton assumes Kaiser is merely a high-priced mercenary employed by the kingdom, especially since Hutton is already fatigued from his previous duel with Jillian. Kaiser flashes a small grin and informs Hutton that he has no eye for true talent. He formally introduces himself as Kaiser, the captain of the Fenris Knights. Hutton is stunned, having assumed the White Lion, Jillian, was the only captain. From the dirt, Jillian grumbles that this is foolish nonsense, but Kaiser tells the older man to just stay down and keep his mouth shut. He challenges Jillian to stand up and fight if he's so bothered, then charges back toward Hutton. Despite his exhaustion, Hutton refuses to retreat. Committed to defending his reputation as the leader of the Twin Wing Knights, the two combatants clash in a flurry of sparks and steel. Hutton parries and counterstrikes, eventually locking his blade with Kaiser's. Kaiser places both hands on his hilt to ramp up the pressure, but Hutton maintains his footing. He ridicules Kaiser's clumsy and ungraceful movements, asserting that Baron Fenris only breeds animals. Hutton brags that he has triumphed in 5 great knightly battles that determined the fate of entire territories, asking Kaiser if he truly believes he would lower himself to fighting a commoner. Kaiser is entirely unimpressed, noting that those conflicts are merely bets placed by mercenaries. He begins to overpower Hutton with raw strength, mentioning that their own master has triumphed in over 100 such duels. The shock of this statement causes Hutton to lose his focus for a split second. Kaiser immediately seizes the opening with a vicious kick to the chin as Hutton stumbles. Kaiser swings his sword downward in a powerful vertical blow. Hutton barely manages to lift his weapon above his head to intercept it. Enraged, Hutton tells Kaiser to stop his ridiculous talking. He utilizes a grappling move to grab Kaiser's leg, hoisting him into the air and slamming him onto the ground. As Hutton readies a final blow with the pommel of his blade, he screams that they will destroy anyone who stands in Count Desmond's path. Suddenly, Jillian intervenes, halting the strike with his axe. Both Kaiser and Hutton are shocked to see him back on his feet. Seizing the moment, Kaiser strikes Hutton in the stomach, forcing the knight to fall back. It has now transformed into a 2-on-1 battle. Jillian, though still fighting for breath, compliments Kaiser on how powerful he has become. Kaiser is sincerely happy to see his comrade back up and asks how he is even able to move. Jillian explains that he received assistance from Priestess Pete, who had been restoring him while Kaiser kept Hutton occupied. An irritated Hutton shrieks at Jillian, calling him a scoundrel and a vulgar cell's word for disrupting a formal duel. Jillian ignores the verbal abuse and warns Kaiser not to let his guard down, identifying Hutton as Instructor Baker, the man who nearly ended him. Kaiser realizes why the rival is so formidable, noting that they likely only have a single chance left to finish this. The two warriors attack at the same time. Hutton manages to deflect Kaiser's initial strike, but Jillian has already shifted to the flank in a desperate maneuver. Hutton seizes Kaiser's sword hand and employs a jujitsu technique to wrench it, forcing Kaiser to drop his weapon in agony. Hutton then pivots to block Jillian's axe. However, as Kaiser falls, he kicks Hutton's blade right out of his hand. Jillian discards his axe and tackles Hutton, sending both of them tumbling into the dirt. Kaiser recovers instantly and begins hammering punches down onto Hutton. Jillian joins the assault from the opposite side, and the two engage in a savage, unrefined brawl. Kaiser lands a heavy kick to the abdomen, and while Jillian pins Hutton in place, he delivers a massive head but that leaves Hutton coughing up blood. The arrogant knight is left broken and bloodied on the ground with his face shattered. Hutton labels them cowardly bastards and asks if they are even knights at all. As they both seize the axe together, they inform him that this is a zone of war, not a tournament. They shout in unison that in a real battle, only the results matter. While Hutton screams in defiance, Kaiser and Jillian bring the axe down, crushing his head and finishing the fight across the plain. Count Desmond hears their final war cry and turns to witness the bloody scene, letting out a shriek of absolute hopelessness at the loss of his greatest champion.